Hey, today I'm going to be sharing my process for making continuous strip cross-grain binding. This method goes together quickly because there is no pinning involved or drawing diagonal lines on the strips. There are 3 different ways to cut your binding strips. The first, which we're going to be doing today, is cross-grain, meaning you're cutting on the width of the fabric selvage to selvage. The second is lengthwise, which means you cut along the length of the fabric parallel to the selvages. And the third way, of course, is bias, which is cut diagonally across the fabric. For this quilt, once again, we are cutting 2.5-inch strips cross grain or selvage to selvage. I'll put the formula below for determining how many strips you'll need for your quilt. So here I'm cutting my 2.5-inch strips. I typically overcut them and then subcut, but you can cut your strips however is easiest for you. I'm going to speed it up so you don't have to watch me cut all these strips. Next, I go ahead and get rid of the selvage edges. I simply stack all of my strips and cut them all off at one time. The next step is to make your cut pieces into one continuous strip. Begin by laying one piece with a short edge by your needle and lay your next strip perpendicular, right sides together on top of it, lining up the raw edges on 2 sides. You'll start by sewing on the top left corner of the bottom strip. Once you've sewn a few stitches, kind of stop and look at the bottom right corner of the top strip, and if you keep your eyes there, your needle will just naturally end up there. Please give this a try. It really works. Then, making sure it's not twisted, you'll place the piece that you've just sewn at your needle, just like we did with the first strip. I usually just pull it, and you'll see I kind of exaggerate it for the video. I just pull, be sure it's not twisted, and then lay it right side up right under my needle. You'll continue this way until all of your pieces are sewn into one continuous strip. Just take a few stitches and I kind of pause, and then I stare right at that bottom corner, and my needle goes there every time. I cut these strips at 2.5 inches because I am going to not only attach the binding by machine, I'm going to machine stitch it down. If I'm hand sewing my binding down, I usually cut it at 2.25 inches. But for this one, I did 2.5 because it's a quilt that I quilted for my mom, and she has no desire to hand stitch her binding. She asked me to make it and sew it on and just machine sew it so she can get to using her quilt. I'm going to speed this process up. When you finish sewing all of your strips together, go ahead and trim the connecting threads. I'm using my little sunflower thread cutter. I can't remember the exact name. I think I bought it from Amazon. I'll try to find it and add a link below. I make a lot of quilts with half square triangles, and this little gadget comes in very handy. The final steps to prepare your binding are to trim your seams, fold it, and press it. I trim my seams by eyeballing a 1/4 inch and I press them open, which you can see I just did. Fold your strips in half with the wrong sides together, lining up your raw edges, and press. Sometimes I use steam, sometimes I don't. Some fabrics are harder to get a good press in. If they are, I'll use steam. I don't think I was using steam for this one. And that's it. Continuous cross grain binding made quickly. Look out for my next video where I'll be attaching it to my mom's quilt. Thanks and have a great day.